Welcome to Wealthy Mind, where we talk about all things finances, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the surprising. Hello, welcome to Wealthy Mind. I am your host, Misty Rose Gold, International Success Coach, where we are helping entrepreneurs, leaders, executives, and all the fun things, business owners, to create a wealthy mind and sustain a wealthy mind. And today I have back with us Todd Huettner. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Misty, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well.
Oh, that's awesome. It's always fun having conversations with you. So I'm glad to have you back and dive into maybe a deeper conversation about what it is that you do. So would you please tell our audience what is your business?
So, Denver Divorce Professionals is a divorce financial consulting company. So, we do divorce financial analysis. And what does that mean? At the end of the day, we help people avoid unnecessary, costly financial mistakes while really just optimizing their outcome. And that really focuses around implementation and where things go wrong, and where things go wrong the most realistically is surrounding the house, and
Mm,
then just other tax and other primary issues. But really having that implementation focus is really what's unique.
sure. And it's such a necessary, in my opinion, it's a necessary service that you provide people because you don't know what you don't know about money and finances and the divorce process itself and the mortgage and all the things and how does it all tie together. So, you know, I know when I have blind spots, and you are one of those people that I see that really helps others with their blind spots. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. There's obvious pieces that a lot of people think about,
Hmm.
and those are, um, how do we equalize the estate? How do we split the the retirement? How can we
Hmm.
split the equity in the house, especially if one of us wants to keep it? Like that's a really hard question that most people face. And at the end of the day, a lot of people want to keep the house, maybe not forever, but with kids, they want to keep it at least for the interim. And what I say is, hey, keep it on your own terms. You may not want it
Hmm.
forever, but how can you do that? And that's where a lot of blind spots are, because there's the obvious ones of even maybe a little less obvious, but capital gains taxes. I mean, people are usually aware of that, but there's just so many little pieces to getting it right.
Hmm.
And attorneys focus on the legal, they're aware of a lot of these pieces. CPAs will focus on their specific piece of tax.
Hmm.
Financial advisors are typically looking at really how, like, we restructure your retirement portfolio and reinvest it for your risk profile now that you're a single income household and things like that. So there's a lot of gaps in between, and that's really where we fill, is those blind spots. And the reason is we need it to get implemented. The best agreements that are perfectly legally sound, perfectly fair, that can't get implemented are useless.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, it's a very sticky experience for people to go through. I've been through it. Fortunately, you haven't been through it, but I've been through divorce. And I think that's part of the reason why you're so good at what you do is because you haven't gone through that. You haven't experienced the pain of it. You haven't experienced the chaos and the mess and the what ifs and all the unknowns and all the things. But you can empathize with people and come from that place of stability from a stable relationship and hold that ground for people and say, hey, this isn't my experience, but I can empathize with your experience. And I hope I never have to be in your shoes type of situation. So thank you for being such a valuable resource for people that do need your services. Hopefully, you never need your services.
No, and it's just doing it so long. I that's what really helps me. There's two things that stick out. One is just seeing just like I said, the unnecessary mistakes, the unnecessary financial pain that people go through. And so much of it is not because people are making poor choices. It's that
Mhm.
uninformed. Like no
Right.
one is there to say, hey, there's a mud puddle there. Walk around it. They either don't see it or they're just unwilling to say it. And the other thing, and I thought about this weekend because I think I heard it 5 times over the last 3 days, was, oh, wish I would have known you 10 years ago. And it's just like that. I hear that so often, and people have this realization, this eye opening to all those blind spots after the fact.
Hmm.
And so that's really why I set out to do what I do, was to just help people understand this because there's simply a better way to do this. And
Hmm.
so much of it is just literally pointing out there's a mud puddle there, walk around it so people don't face plant right in the middle of it.
Hmm.
And that's really where I've seen that just way too many times.
Sure.
And that's really where it's painful because it's just a little bit of understanding and information would just save everyone from all this frustration.
I really appreciate your passion for people in that space. It's always fun to be around your passion. It inspires me. So, what is the like? I want to talk about the financial cost of your services. We don't have to give numbers, but I want people to be able to understand why they cannot work. I mean, how do I phrase this? You know what I'm trying to say. There's a reason why they need to work with you and they can't afford not to. So
Yeah.
I need you to spell out why it's worth the financial cost to hire you instead of just winging it.
Well, but this goes for all professionals, not just me. And I tell people this all the time. You really should get legal advice. Um, you really should get financial advice. You really should get some mental health support to make sure you're okay emotionally, make sure your kids are, make sure you can be your best. Um, just muddling through this isn't really where you want to be. You can come out on the other side of this in a really good position if you don't ignore any one of those three aspects, or you don't focus just entirely on one. So there's no mistake that will cost less than several hours with a professional. So I use that as an example. Just consult with an attorney, and there's no mistake that doesn't cost 5 to 10 times that. In
Mhm.
many cases, it can be a lot more. And I think, it's easier for me to see it when it's with other professionals like legal because so many people don't understand how they can engage a legal professional.
Mhm.
And they also, it's the same thing you're, I guess, trying to ask is how would they engage you? And it's really the same thing, which is people don't know. They think of CPA, they think of financial advisor, but there's really this, this middle that really helps put all the pieces together. And so I try, other professionals, like attorneys, really struggle to do this. They can't work on a fixed cost basis. So I'll work with people with, hey, you just need a couple hours. We can just do a quick 2 hour consultation or 2 1 hour consultations to kind of figure out where you are.
Mhm.
Other cases, just in talking with people, most of the time I can tell pretty quickly, here's where you are, here's where you're trying to go, here's all the problems that you need to address in the middle, given your situation. And then I have this approach. It's a fixed time, fixed cost. And again, it's tailored to each situation depending upon that complexity.
Mhm.
But attorneys don't know where this is going to come out in the end, and I don't either. So if someone said, "Hey, tell me how much this is going to cost total," I don't have a clue. But when it comes down to, you need this piece to be able to answer the question about how I
Mhm.
accomplish these things, how I get enough information to figure out what can I do, then what should I do? That's a very different question.
Right.
Then how do I do it? Like those are all the three pieces that come together. But if we're talking about, let's just say the house, and we're talking about tax implications. And we're talking about buying out equity, whether it's assuming a loan, refinancing a loan, or maybe they just want to buy a house and go do something different, downsize, whatever the case may be. you have to figure out that exact piece. So great, everyone needs to do the same thing, answer that same question, and here's how much time it's going to take given the complexity of your situation. And so I just, I really, and I had this question asked last week when I was working with doing a training for a law firm, and it was like, hey, let's do an initial consultation and we can figure out where you are pretty quick. From there, we can just figure out, hey, does a consultation make sense, like a 2 hour, or do you want to go ahead and jump into this option? Because this is what you need. I've been doing this 20 years.
Hmm.
I know what you need. I know what your attorneys need. If you can't make the decisions and you can't give your attorneys the direction or at least advocate for yourself because you need this information, then you really can't move forward and do so with any confidence.
That's awesome. So there's a lot of reasons that I'm hearing there why people can't afford not to work with you, but they have the option of just a very basic introduction to you, which is a 2 hour. Yes, you charge for your time, of course, but there's 2 hours that they can spend with you to start to understand what this financial process looks like. And I know in that space, you can also be like the head of their team, so to speak, and then you can pull in the right professionals as need be. So I want everybody looking at this as though it's a divorce team. You need a team to help you
Yeah.
address this appropriately. So part of that team should be Todd to, get eyes on the financials so that you are having the healthiest outcome financially with your divorce, right? So I know that there's been a lot of different scenarios where you've told me about people had, oh my God, this one person, it cost them $80,000 when you could have saved them that headache just because they didn't know what they don't know about the financial piece, right? So not only are you going to help people avoid some of those financial pitfalls, but you're going to connect them to the right attorneys. If they need an attorney, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're going to need additional help. So you have CPAs in your back pocket, you have financial advisors in your back pocket. And I'm sure that you have therapists and or divorce coaches that can help out in that space with, the personal aspect of it. So,
But on that note, you asked about blind spots earlier. One of the
mhm,
biggest blind spots, and what I try to explain to people is um, picking the path. So trying to decide on the path of how they want to move forward through their divorce. And so the analogy that I give is we're going on vacation, pack your bags. It's like, wait a minute, we're going to the mountains or are we going to the beach, especially in January? This matters a lot. Um, and and so I tell people, it's like, wait a minute, how can you start calling attorneys if you don't know where you're going on vacation? How can you start calling different professionals? So what I'm
mhm,
getting at is you need to understand how you want your approach to go, and then build your team around that. And how do you mean, Todd? Well, you want to stay out of court, but how can do you want to work with your spouse? Do you want to drive the process? Do you want to get advice from professionals and maybe have them provide some framework and structure during some different pieces or where you guys may struggle? Or do you want your professionals to really guide the process and really hold your hand through the whole thing? Or maybe you even outsource it to them. I just can't deal with this. I'm emotionally overwhelmed. I can't advocate for myself depending upon the dynamics of the
mhm,
relationship. So it may make sense to literally outsource that to an attorney who would really just act on your behalf. And so I think it comes down to the individual situation. It comes down to their ability to communicate and work together with their spouse. But so many people realize and agree they want to stay out of court. They don't want to fight. They agree on quite a bit, maybe not everything. And it doesn't have to be kumbaya. I actually had a client this morning say, "Oh, we hate each other, but we agree we want to stay out of court. We want to stay out of court way more than we hate each other." And so I'm like, "Well, that's one way to put it." And I was kind of laughing, but she's like, "No, like we can email back and forth. We agree on a lot. We've already actually decided on a few things to the dollar. We just need help figuring out these other pieces and putting it together so it doesn't get screwed up." So I always tell people, who's driving the D car? Do you want to drive the D car, the divorce car with your spouse, and then get your team to ride in the back and just give you advice along the way and guidance and navigate for you? Check the weather, check for construction, check for speed traps and all that, or they can actually drive and you and your spouse can be in the back seat, or if you have to, you can be in separate cars. But who you're going to pick for your team and what pieces you need, a divorce coach, oh, that's an extra expense. Uh-huh. And it's going to save you thousands of dollars as opposed to crying on your attorney's shoulder, and they usually hate it. It's not what they do well. It's not their personality. They're
No,
not the
it's not.
and so pairing a financial advisor, personality wise, but also just where someone is. Do they have large, complex assets or business? I have a couple who's got a business right now, and they've decided they can't really split the business. So they're going to keep it running. And I know they'll do a good job at this because that's kind of how they've been operating it the last several years, but they need a business attorney almost more
Hmm.
than a divorce attorney to write this operating agreement that's going to
Right.
restructure some things. And then they need an estate attorney because they want it all to go to their children. So at the end of the day, they agree on almost all the divorce stuff. It's really the other complexities that are outside of the traditional family law where they really need that help. So that's the one piece that I always tell people you've got to figure out first, which is what path do you want to go? Collaborative, cooperative, out of court, what can you do, right?
Or
Sometimes,
adversarial.
yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's not up to you. You may want all
Yeah.
those things and you just may be forced into a different situation. But
Hmm.
figuring those pieces out, then building the team around that is going to get you the best outcome. And so I think oftentimes calling an attorney and just saying you're my attorney is putting the cart before the horse. Now, a lot of good attorneys will say, hey, let's start and figure out if I am the right person. And maybe you need a little bit different person than me, and that's
Hmm.
okay too. And so that's where I think, um, you know, get advice because people don't know where to start, but you can get
Right.
this from many different professionals who are in divorce. If they've been in the divorce field a long time. This is all part of it, and they know a lot of other professionals and
Hmm.
should be willing to say, let's make sure I'm a good fit. And if I'm not, maybe I can help you in other ways and at least just get you moving forward. And
Hmm.
so that's a big piece, I think, is figuring that out before you start to build the team. And that's something that I do a lot. And in a lot of cases, it's just, hey, we figure it out as we go, and it's not like a specific task. I do have a client right now. She specifically said, I know you're my financial guy. I want you to guide me through the rest of this.
Mm.
And she said, I want it to be start to finish. And so I said, great, let's build in a little bit of time for that on top of the financial piece. And I said, is that going to meet your needs? She goes, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I said, great, that's what I've done for a lot. Usually it's a shorter period up front, and then we just kind of hand it off. But she specifically wanted me to
Okay.
allocate time to check in with her every other week for 30 minutes. Perfect. It
Okay.
really has worked out well because they're doing a very deliberate, slow process on purpose for a variety of reasons, and it's really working out well for her.
So for people that are interested, do you prefer to work with the collaborative cases?
When it's the right situation, absolutely. And also collaborative in Colorado, collaborative means the UCLA, the Uniform Collaborative Law Act. So there's some specific components to that and for a reason. And so people, once they find out about it, if their situation is very cooperative, and they are wanting to really do a lot of it on their own and don't need as much professional support, and that's a little bit more of a kumbaya case. It's a little simpler, a little automatically lower conflict.
Hmm.
Then, I say, hey, there are some professionals that I work with. We do light collaborative, so
Hmm.
it's a little bit shorter, easier process. But otherwise, sometimes the collaborative is a little too much process if someone has a straightforward situation and they're cooperative. So that's where you could do, for lack of a better term, cooperative or cooperative mediation.
Hmm.
And the mediation could really just be between the two of them, without like a formal mediator, or oftentimes a formal mediator can just step in and do that. So yeah, I mean, it's collaborative, cooperative mediation, collaborative mediation, or mediation arbitration. Hey, you know what? We've got a few hairy details we're not sure we're going to agree on. Is there a way we could just agree on what we can agree on and then leave that other piece to someone else in case we can't? Yeah, that's called collaborative arbitration, or sorry, mediative arbitration, where you bifurcate. You simply say, we're going to mediate what we can agree on within a mediator. Usually that same mediator would then switch into the um, role of an arbitrator. They don't have to. You can go to a separate arbitrator to do that as well.
Mhm.
It just depends on the situation. And so I think sometimes people are very spot on and hit that from the start. I think other times maybe they just like it as that backup plan so they don't wind up in court. And so they're willing to go that route and they end up figuring it all out in mediation anyway.
So it sounds to me like it's worth everybody's while that's going through the divorce process to at least have 2 hours of your time with you so that they have the peace of mind of making informed decisions, even if they don't
Yeah.
continue the process with you. So it just makes sense because I've been through the divorce process and it's unfun. Um, and to have somebody like you with the expertise, I'm always looking for like, who knows what I don't know, and how
Yeah.
can I bring them into my world to make it an easier process for me? So,
There's so much. Put it this way. If you think you know it all, you don't. When it comes to divorce, why would you? How would you? There are people who've been doing this for 10 or 20 years who don't know the other pieces. I mean, I don't know the law
Mhm.
pieces. I know the parts you want to ask about, and oh, you better ask your attorney about that. And we need
Yeah,
to go get information and tax advice and financial planning. But no one can know it all and keep up on it all. That's why the team is so critical to having that team component. And oh, someone asked me, you said something a minute ago. Someone asked me, it was last week actually, and said, why not a 1 hour? And I said, well, 1 hour is not enough. I mean, I'm still getting information from you to understand where you are and where you're trying to go. That second hour is where it's all like, okay, now we understand enough of the details where you can actually give you information that would be um, an actionable list of here's all the things you got to figure out. Here's a couple easy ones, and here's the harder
hmm
ones you're going to need to spend a little more time on, or get some different expertise like tax. Hey, I can give you heads up on a lot of these details. I'm not a CPA. Let's go check with your CPA. That's really easy. They're going to come up with some other stuff we don't know about or think about because they've been doing,
sure,
especially if they've been doing your taxes for 5 years, 10 years.
right. So it seems to me like it's a lot like dating. You don't go on a date for just an hour, typically, right? Because
Well, no, unless it's a really bad date, I guess.
exactly, you can't really get to know somebody in that short amount of time. So
It's a great analogy.
for you, definitely 2 hours is very, very reasonable because an hour just isn't enough time to get to know their situation and then implement or give some advice or whatever. Like it's
Yeah.
like cutting off a date early. So there's
It's a waste
that's
of time. It's a
yeah,
waste of time to show up for a 30-minute date or a 1 hour date.
yeah,
Unless
for
that's the
sure.
unless that's the plan.
Yeah, unless it's speed dating, but that's a different story. So let's make it worth our time, people. And if you guys reach out to Todd, make sure you're just going to accept that it's 2 hours. And it's going to, I mean, he's his fees are less than attorneys. Let's just go put it that way. I'm not going to call out numbers, but they're less than attorneys typically. So I want to make sure that people are making informed decisions and not fearful decisions. And having that 2 hour consultation with you helps them get out of the fear state and make informed decisions. Because I know a lot of people going through the divorce are scared, they're fearful of the unknown, and they make a lot of decisions based on fear. And they might take their divorce down a really bad path because they're so fearful. They go out and get a sharky attorney straight away and they turn the whole situation into something that's really ugly. And they don't have to, right? That's making a fearful decision. So let's make informed decisions.
Yeah, the fearful decisions oftentimes lead to the outcomes that we're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm. They do.
In an effort to stay out of court, I'm gonna go get this awesome pit bull attorney who's gonna drag me right into court.
Mm-hmm. And then make it a very ugly, ugly divorce.
Yeah.
So if people are thinking about having this conversation with you, this 2 hour consultation, who is your ideal client? And we're gonna pick on both sides. So who is your ideal male client? And then who is your ideal female client? Because we're all different. We all work with other people in a different way. I know that you're not the right fit for every single person. You have information that every single person needs, but you may not be the right fit. So help our audience see themselves working with you. Who's the ideal male?
Well, and I think it's there's definitely uh tendencies by gender. but it's really the characteristics of the personality.
Mm,
And so the the real way to look at it is this way. And I say this without the intent to offend everyone, but it is true and it is funny. And again, whether it's male or female, but there are people who are not looking for help because they know everything. So in general, men are big dumb animals, right? We're never lost. We're never, that's why we don't need to ask for directions when we're
mm.
driving, even though it's obviously we're taking the scenic, it's, scenic route. I don't need to ask for directions. This is the way I planned to go. I just wanted to see this 90 miles of dirt road. Um, so, at the
Uh,
end of the day, from like a society perspective,
mm,
it's almost like this, we expect you to know these things based on chromosomes, and these things are like financial. And so it's
mm,
almost like there's this shame if you are this masculine role where you're supposed to just know this stuff. You're supposed to take care of it. It's that
right.
role. And so it's really hard because you'll never get someone to admit they need this help. And so it's really just, okay, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do my thing, and it'll help you go through this. You'll avoid any mistakes. And so it's not, I'm going to tell you this because you don't know it. It's simply, here's what you need to do. And there's a lot of stuff, um, you know, unless you do this, there's no way you would know it. So it's really just, let's go through the process. Make sure it's not for you. Your attorney needs this information to be able to advocate for you, be able to know what you need included in your agreement, to make sure that you get the right wording and not including other pieces in other areas, and that we know the questions to ask your attorney or ask your CPA. So it's not for you, it's really for them, just to get the details they need about your case, because they're going to ask for this information.
Mm,
And so that's one way I think I can help those folks go through that. But in general,
yeah.
if someone is going through a divorce, and I mean, I give examples, but if they own a home, even if they think they're going to sell it, there can be a lot of tax implications. And I just had a call yesterday. No, it was Friday. I'm going to sell these things. Great. We found a bunch of stuff they weren't aware of that
Hmm.
should have been calculated in the value of the property based on tax and other aspects. And so that was a big difference. Um, Actually, I have another case right now where they know there's some upgrade maintenance. It's deferred maintenance to the property that they've got to make before they can do anything. And those pieces come back and it can make a big difference. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but 10 here, 15, 20 there. It was a difference from $230,000 by the time we made these different adjustments for tax, maintenance, and a couple of other things. It came down to a net of 22 grand. So on the surface of it, they were trying to figure out a way to buy each other out for 229, and it came down to 22. And
Mm,
they're like, wow, we really, because they were kind of like coin toss on which one took which property.
hmm.
Um, and it was really like, wow, one of us would have really kind of gotten hosed. And it's like, yeah.
Hmm.
And if you didn't figure it out, I guess you would have lived blissfully ignorant. But people usually figure it out at some point when they have to pay the tax man and a bunch of surprise. And that can
Yeah.
just create a lot of acrimony later and everyone comes back. So from a guy perspective, or for someone who's not there, it's really, we almost can save them from themselves, because
Mm,
that unwillingness to admit that anything is needed, or feeling of shame from
yeah.
that. But in general, it's people who, the best client is someone who appreciates the information to get it done right, to provide to their other partners, even if professionals, even if they don't need it. And there's just a lot there. And so
Yeah.
a lot of that detail. And
Well,
so the
that's,
characteristics are, if you have property, it just creates retirement, and other things can be divided very easily to the dollar. We just need to
hmm.
write the agreements right, and we need to come to an agreement. When it comes to pensions or one and real estate, they're really hard, and you can't just cut them in half.
So let's go back to the male client for just a moment so I can help frame that
Okay.
because I love men. I respect men. There's no judgment here. I just think it's funny how
Oh,
you described everything.
I'm the biggest dumb animal of them all when it comes to like doing silly guy stuff, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
lost. I meant to go this way.
So let's make sure that they can frame it in a way when they reach out to you so that it's palatable for them and
I
their
would love it. I haven't had
insecurities,
anyone call and say I'm a big dumb animal. I need your help, but
right? So
I'll give someone a free hour if I get that call because I'll love that. I'll know exactly where to start.
yes, 100%. Okay, so you've heard it here, y'all. Anybody
Yep.
who's heard this
That's
interview,
your super secret discount code is I'm a big dumb animal. Help me.
you get an hour discount if you come at Todd
Yep.
with I'm a big dumb animal.
Yep.
Now, for those of you who don't want to save an hour's time and don't want to say that to Todd, which I think is hilarious, everybody should do it. Um, the way that you can frame it for yourself and approaching Todd is I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So help me with the black and whites of the divorce process, right?
Yeah.
So you're not undermining your intelligence. You're not undermining what you already know. You're just making sure that you get a second pair of eyes on your situation so that you're not missing anything. And I think that's a really good way for men to approach you so that their ego is intact, but they're still getting the help that they
Yeah.
need to make sure that they're going through this process with the most informed decisions that they can and doing it smartly, right?
Yeah, and I think a separate set of eyes and just a separate perspective can be really helpful. A
Hmm.
lot of what I do is just like it's the straight stuff every single time. Like that's part of it. The other is I do a lot of unconventional stuff just because I've been doing it for over 20 years. I've learned from clients. I've seen some clients come up with some really creative solutions that I'm like, that's a good one. I'm going to use that.
Hmm.
Another one is after the fact. I've seen the 20 years of train wrecks. And man, have I seen every which way to not do it and screw it up. So it's so many of those pieces where everything could be like spot on, except, ooh, that one little detail, just change
Right,
that. And some
right.
it's not that like you're not smart, your attorney isn't good, or I'm great at everything. That's not it at all. It's sometime a fresh pair of eyes can just see something that's not there, or just coming from a different perspective. And
Hmm.
that's why I think the team is absolutely the way to go. Even if you just need a little bit of time, 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 2 hours there,
Right,
you will
right.
get an amazing solution that just avoids all these mistakes. So that's a great way to put it.
Good, excellent. So when it comes to women, I know the conversation is a little bit different. It's a different emotional environment. So who is your ideal female client?
Um, I think the ideal female client is actually one who doesn't over uh, over underestimate their abilities. It's really challenging at times to have to explain and convince people, hey, you actually know a lot about this. It's not rocket science, it's just so much information.
Mm.
And so I think that's probably, one of the best clients is someone who's like they recognize they don't know everything, and again, that's kind of the foil, the opposite mirror image of the typical kind of
Mhm.
male persona is I don't know everything. I am reaching out. I do want help. I do see the value of getting this additional help. And to me, that's really, really important. And I've had people just say, I don't have anyone. Like normally I would bounce this off a family member. I don't,
Mhm.
my dad passed away. That was who my husband was. I bounced the stuff off of him. So sometimes they are looking for a guy to talk to, or sometimes it's just someone who has this information. Sometimes there is that gender element where they feel a little bit more comfortable uh, talking with me versus someone else. But it's
Mhm.
really just, I don't have anyone to ask about this stuff. So even if they feel they have a pretty good grasp, they just want a sounding board. And so, they don't have to be someone who is like super math oriented. They don't have to be someone who's like super detail oriented. It's really just, hey, help walk me through this, and I'm really eager to learn how to do this on my own because that's the other piece. To me, it's like, hey, let's get you. Um, it's not. There's a lot of basic things we can do here to help you understand credit, help you understand the basic financial foundation that you're going to need to stand on
Mhm.
your own 2 feet going forward. Let's give you the tools, and again, maybe it's not you're going to go do all this. maybe we're going to get you the gym, personal trainer to help you do this along the way.
Hmm.
So maybe that's me just to get you going through this process. And then once you're done, you get connected with a CPA, financial advisor. So again, it's that team, but it's the team carrying you forward post decree, I think, where I focus a lot of help, and that's where I can provide so much value. And that's really where it comes to again for both the typical guy, typical woman. It's how can I provide the most value and just help the most. And if I can, great. Let me show you exactly how it works. If not,
Hmm.
I'm going to get out of the way. And you're
Yeah.
good enough on your own. Here's a few tips, or you need someone, but it's not me. It may be this other professional, or
Mhm.
it may be someone who's similar to do what I do, but they're going to do it differently because you have a ton of complex RSUs, restricted stock units. I can do that, but I got people who do it faster, quicker, better than me.
Right.
So why not just let them do that? Like plug and play the best of breed. So and so that's really it when it comes to kind of the female role is just basically understanding where they're coming from, and if anything, where guys tend to overestimate their abilities, women tend to underestimate it too much
Mhm.
and almost really hold themselves back and almost it leads again to mistakes or almost that thing they're trying to avoid.
Right. So I'm going to just spell out what I hear about women.
Yeah.
So,
You say it
you're-
a little better.
well, I am one, so it's
Well, that's true.
a little bit easier for me to identify or to see myself as your client, right?
Yeah.
So, um, what I'm hearing from you for women, your ideal female client is a female that feels kind of lost and she needs a safe place to explore her financial options and get the financial education that she needs because a lot of women go without that financial
Yeah.
understanding and education and what to do with the green stuff. And then I hear that you empower the woman by teaching them these things that they don't know. And anytime we learn something, we level up and we're empowered to expand and be greater and do better things and to have more confidence moving forward in life. And it ultimately provides more opportunities for women if they understand what to do with the green stuff, because a lot of women don't get it. So,
Well, they've never had the opportunity
or
the
the desire.
or the desire, but they've never had the responsibility.
Right.
Like it
Exactly.
may have never been given to them. It may have been taken away, which is really stupid, but happens. Or maybe they never had to because someone else just was willing to do it. So, but it's not so much. It's pieces. Sometimes it's teaching. Sometimes it's just connecting dots.
Hmm.
But a lot of the time, it's just you got this. Like you really do have this. Like I can't tell you how many times I have to like basically just encourage
Hmm.
and
That's
that's
part
where
of the
just having
empowerment
them,
piece.
yeah, and that's where just having worked with so many people for so long, just
Mhm.
recognizing when they just need that little bit of encouragement and it's so good. It's so good. I got a today. Um, I got another thank you from a client.
Mm.
Just a tough spot, and it was just thank you so much for having this. Just everything you've done to get me to this point, and then
Mhm.
everything that you've got set up for me to just get past the decree piece because like I'm all of a sudden I was paranoid again and fearful that I was like, oh gosh, what do I do next? And it was like, oh wait, hold on, and then it's all there. So
Mhm.
that's another piece where yeah, the thank yous are amazing.
Yeah, and that's why we do what we do, both you and me. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we work well together is because we do it for the people at the end of the day. It's,
Yeah.
ultimately not for us why we do what we're doing. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a person, a male that both men and women can feel safe with. Like some guys may not admit it, but they want to feel safe too.
Yeah.
And, women are quicker to admit it. And
Yeah.
I've known you for years. So if either side, either gender, either whatever you guys identify as, if you're looking to feel safe with somebody as a human being, not just your finances, but as a human being, Todd is a very safe individual and he is a very good human. So Todd, we need to get wrapping up. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I think it's going to be really helpful for people that have maybe listened to some of your previous interviews of, well, who does Todd want to work with and who does he work with best? So we've pretty much identified that for people so that they can really see themselves in that space and save themselves a lot of heartache and just reach out to you and have that 2 hour time with you. Even if they don't go beyond it,
Yeah,
it's priceless from my perspective. It is absolutely priceless. So thank you for your time. I so appreciate you.
you're welcome. And thanks for the opportunity. I always enjoy talking with you. And even on your Wealthy Mind podcast, we end up just kind of rephrasing things or uncovering a little bit more here and there. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Of course. Now, is one way, not if, but yes, you have, of course, you have your website. So, one way that people can reach out to you if they would like to pick your ear for 2 hours
Um, yeah, just
or
reaching
pick your
out.
brain, not your ear. Holy God, Misty.
No, I don't know.
They're going to come out with a ball of wax.
My brain filled in brain, and then I realized what you said when you said it.
I know, right?
Yeah, I think the easiest on denverdivorceprofessionals.com, you can fill out a request for information that just basically sends an email. Hey, want to chat? You
Okay,
can call, schedule a time. You can schedule a time online as well. So it's really just whatever people want to do. If they want to email,
perfect.
call, go online and do it automatically. Um, Whatever works for people.
Perfect. So, Todd's information will be in the link. So, check him out and you won't be sorry. You'll be grateful that you did. All right, Todd, I'm looking forward to having you on again. I know we have some more interviews coming up, so it'll be great to have you back. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week and we will see you soon.
Thanks. You too.
All right, take care.
Bye bye.
Until next time, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Wealthy Mind podcast. Please be sure to download the Wealthy Mind app today and make sure to support your local Dress for Success.